Thank you guys for being here. I'm going to turn the gavel over to BK Riha, who will facilitate our chat today. We've got some outstanding guests and folks that we really love and admire, and we hope that we will all learn some stuff from each other today and get to know each other and maybe be inspired to pursue lots of cool directions musically and artistically and professionally in the future. So, BK, why don't you take us around the room?
Yes. Hello, everybody. If For anyone who in the room who is not of Tiffin University, my name is BK Riha, and I teach here at TU. And I'm going to be kind of facilitating this thing, but I would love to introduce our special guests. We have five special guests from all over the music industry, all genres: classical, jazz, hip hop, rock, all that kind of stuff. So let's start with Mr. Andy Reid, just because you're the next box on the screen.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, everybody. My name is Andy Reid. I'm from Bay City, Michigan. I still live here with my family. I'm in my basement home studio, Reid Recording Company, which I've been doing publicly for about 15 years. Before that, came up as a musician, played in a lot of original bands, and eventually, most notable, I got an opportunity to be a touring bass player for the band The Verve Pipe, which was pretty big in the late 90s and 2000s. I'm a songwriter, producer, engineer, bassist, guitarist, drummer, kind of do a little bit of everything, but mainly I just kind of make records with a lot of artists, particularly singer-songwriters, rock, country, jazz, kind of throw mics up and hit record kind of guy. So deal with lots of musicians, and it's a great gig. I didn't expect to fall into it, but maybe we'll get into that later. So, but thanks again for having me. I really appreciate being a part of this.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. We're really glad to have you. I want to mention before I go on, at any time, if anyone has a question for our panel, feel free to type it into the chat and we'll be moderating that. So, anytime. Next up is the incredible Jon Smith, who I believe is in London at the moment.
Hi, everybody. Yes, my name is Jon Smith. It's a real name, I promise. I'm originally from New York, but I currently live in London, England. I sing with a group called the Swingles. You might know them as the Swingle Singers. Been around since the 60s. I actually listened to that group when I was 12 years old, kind of at the time when you didn't even realize something like that could be a job. So it's pretty cool that I get to do that now. I am also a full-time arranger. I do a lot of recording and editing engineering now since the pandemic started. And I've sung on lots of movie soundtracks, Mary Poppins Returns, Wonder Woman 1984, Cats, which we think probably started the whole pandemic. Just kidding, sorry. Let's not record that part. But yeah, kind of do a bit of everything. As a musician, I studied classically, so was in lots of operas at university, but at the same time was running to a cappella rehearsals afterwards. And yeah, I think that's everything about me.
Cool. Thank you, Jon. Thank you so much. On to the next jazz vocalist, songwriter, and I can't think of the word, also writes for other people, lyricist, Estar Cohen. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
My name is Estar, and I am a composer and a vocalist and a band leader. I work primarily with arranging, composing, all of that good stuff, writing songs. And right now, during the pandemic, I've been focusing a lot on my private studio, working with composers and songwriters here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm from Toledo, Ohio originally. And using the time to get into more production work and film scoring and things like that, because it has been a good time to kind of look inward and see what I'm interested in right now. So yeah, I will leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next incredible guest, Tiffin University's own J. Rawls, or officially Dr. Jason Rawls, who also wrote a book.
Hello, everyone. How are you? My name is Jay Rawls. You call me Jason, whatever, Rawls, whatever. Let's see here. From Columbus, Ohio. Still live in Columbus, Ohio. I am a hip hop producer, a DJ. I guess you could say engineer because I have to. A swingle singer, like fan. So looking at John, I'm like, whoa, like whoa, like double whoa. So you know, I'm just here. I'm also an educator. I am I've been lecturing for years now at different universities, and Tiffin is one of the best. If you're wanting music, that's where you go. Sorry for the shameless plug, but hey, couldn't hurt. I don't know. What else do you want me to tell, Brad? Anything else, or just we leave it for the event, right? Let's leave it for the event.
Well, you got lots to share. I will add in the little bio part of your introduction that for those of you that are hip hop heads and know the Most Def, Talib Kweli, Brown Skin Lady, and other tracks, that's J. Rawls. That was the beginning of his storied career. I've done many, many other amazing things that I really love. And if you're a jazz fan and a hip hop fan, Liquid Crystal Project, something you got to check out. There's other things too, but no, there's some great things that Rawls is too humble to talk about. So I'll just say that there.
I mean, I've been blessed, but I'm in all of what we have on this panel, so I'm excited. But I'll get into that and we'll talk about it. But greetings all, and I'm glad to be here.
Thanks. Cool. We're excited. Mel Daneke, who is in and out of the chat, she was driving home. She was like, I'm going to have a face as soon as I get home. I don't know if she is still in the group. Maybe is finding her way back. So we might have to...
I think she is between her car and her house. So we'll find her in a second.
Yeah. So, we can get started. There are no questions in the chat just yet. Does anybody want to pose a question and start us off? Cool. Let me ask a very kind of general question, specifically for our music majors and people who know they wanted to go into music industry. Maybe what do you know now that you wish you had known back when you were studying or thinking about doing music?
That's a great question. I would say one of the biggest things is, as a music major, we kind of go from class to class and assignment to assignment, and we're sort of always focusing on the next thing or the next audition. It is not like that at all in the real world. You're sort of spinning many plates all at the same time. While you're working on this album, you're also arranging this for 6 months down the line for Christmas. At the same time, you're preparing for an audition. I think music school does prepare you for that a bit. But when you sort of are all out on your own and doing all of those things on your own, and not all of your classmates are doing it at the same time, it's a lot different. I think, the biggest thing is spinning many plates, including your business plates, and thinking about your invoices and your taxes and your marketing. And did I pay my website bill this month? Lots of different things you basically have to become your own business and your own boss. And there's no professors that are going to sort of slap you on the wrist for missing that deadline. If you miss the deadline, you've missed an opportunity. I think the biggest thing is just being your own boss right out the gate.
That's really good. Can I add on to that? One thing I would definitely say is learn the business. The business of music is something that young artists often forget or just kind of don't pay attention to because it's not quite as fun. As John alluded to, taxes, taxes. Let me just say taxes. But understanding royalties, publishing, copyright, these are the small things that can um, help earn you money when you're not gigging. And there's things like that that are so important to just be successful and to maintain. So I would definitely say a word of advice: learn the business.
Yeah.
Something that I would add, if I'm really thinking about kind of putting myself back in the shoes of where I was at when I was going through school as a music major, something that I think that was really, really important but was often missed is wellness, physical wellness, mental wellness. And um, such a big part, just as John was saying, of getting your business going is the hustle. And we are constantly in the hustle. Moving to your next gig, whether that's going to be an arranging gig, a teaching gig, you're always putting on a different hat, right? And it can be really easy to get lost in that. And sometimes it's not going to be a day where you can just, say, I can't do this, and I'm going to go take a bath and I'm going to go sleep for sometimes you have the work in front of you, have to do the work. And that's why it's really important to kind of continuously check in with yourself, check in with the people around you, your collaborators, your peers, to make sure that you are feeding yourself in ways that are nurturing to you other than just the hustle, just the work.
100%. I think there's only probably less than 5% of professional musicians that land a gig that gig alone is going to feed them for the next couple of years. Most of the time you're running tons of different little pots and tons of different little projects that are all going to contribute to your living wage. And as Estar said, it can be quite stressful. So being able to check in with yourself and saving time for you is really important.
One thing that when I was starting out that I didn't realize was the case was on how much your education from all your different things tie together. When I was going to school to be for music education. I wanted to be a music teacher. And, so I had the theory classes and the voice leading and all that stuff. Then when I got into engineering, little did I know that all those notes were frequencies, and learning all that stuff and ear training and working with different musicians and studying their techniques, it all ties together. So if you feel like you're in a gig that might not be getting you anywhere, try to bring some education from it, because I guarantee you it will come in handy later on down the road. So education is everything. It all connects no matter what you're doing and no matter what part of the field. Even the people you meet, you might meet someone at a crappy gig at 2 a.m. at some club. Later on down the road, they need you for something and they want to hire you for something. So always be aware that the next opportunity could be right in front of you.
I want to jump over to Mel for a sec, who has arrived. Mel Daneke, producer, beatboxer, vocalist, overall BA. Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So, thanks for forgive me. I got stuck in traffic and I was supposed to get back in a timely manner, but Austin decided to rule against me. So hi, I'm Mel. I am from New Jersey, but I live in Austin, Texas. 73 degrees. Be jealous. But summers are hot. I own a production company called Viridian Productions, and I do mostly a cappella production. So like, I'm sure y'all are familiar with like pentatonics, like that style of music. That's basically my jam. That's what I produce most of the time. I'll arrange. I'm also in 2 other vocal groups, Six Appeal and Musée. And I'm actually working on my own stuff right now, which has nothing to do with a cappella, and it's all electronic pop. So very different. But as you can tell, so from what I'm gauging from the conversation previously, is wearing many hats in order to really have a solid career in the music field or music industry in any facet. And I think I'm a prime example for that for sure.
Cool. Let me jump in and there's a couple questions in the chat, and maybe this will help inspire some other conversation as well. These are actually sort of both the same question. Who are some music artists who inspired you, or favorite artists you've worked with, and maybe how that's contributed to your developing your own career aspirations and goals?
That's a big question, I think, for a lot of us, because I know that creative types draw from so many different places. But I'll start. I'm a Beatles nerd, so I'm going to start there. At 14 years old, when it wasn't cool in the early 90s to like the Beatles because that was your dad's music. So super Beatle nerd, production wise, song wise. I did work with someone very early on in my early 20s named Brendan Benson. And he's a member of the band The Raconteurs, which are in Nashville, Tennessee now, with Jack White from the White Stripes. And Brendan had an all analog studio. The band I was in, we recorded to tape. We did it the old fashioned way, no auto tune, nothing. You had to nail it on the way in. And I just really appreciated that method of recording, and how, I don't know, maybe it was just because how proud we were that we actually pulled it off. Now that we have Pro Tools and I'm fully digital now, but I still try to take that analog method of nailing it on the floor and getting the performance down. And I just feel like people walk away a lot more fulfilled because they did do it that way. So that's a biggie for me.
I was very lucky in the sense of growing up. There was music around a lot, and my family actually started a music venue to kind of bolster, to support their kids' love for music. So music was always around. And I grew up in Toledo, Ohio. I will say that something that really propelled me into the study of jazz and improvisation was getting the opportunity to go to our local jazz club, Murphy's Club, which was still around at the time, and getting to sit in with the band, getting to sit in with Claude Black and Clifford Murphy, who were these incredible musicians that I had the opportunity to learn from by playing, by listening, by hearing. And I just think that, one, I'm just very, very grateful for the opportunity to have gone out and experienced music within my own community and be able to connect with the people that knew more than me. And there are so many people out there that know so much more than me, and I can't wait to get back out there and talk with people again. But I just really encourage, if you have the opportunity, if there are people in your community that you want to learn from, reach out. You never know. You never know.
Yeah, I was brought up on Motown music. Stevie Wonder, the Supremes, the Isley Brothers, the Jackson 5. And it's no wonder that I fell in love with vocal music, because there are so many harmonies. I mean, the background singers were that music. You weren't singing along to what the soloist was singing. You were singing along to what the backing singers were singing. They always had the hook. So I'm really lucky that my dad brought me up on Motown music. And then I fell in love with jazz, and I taught myself how to arrange by actually transcribing New York Voices arrangements. And if you know the New York Voices, I don't know why 14-year-old me decided to try to transcribe those ones. I remember sitting in my bedroom as a 14-year-old, pushing the headphones into my head as if that would help me hear the harmonies better. But now as an adult, I actually got to do some collaborations with the New York Voices. So it's pretty cool to come full circle in that way. So yeah, for me, it's definitely Motown music and jazz.
Well, I'm going to take a different approach because everyone has talked about who inspired them, and I'm pretty much in the same realm. Definitely grew up on Motown and jazz. Um, but when hip hop came in, it kind of just took over for me, and I fell in love learning how to. I started out beatboxing. That was the very first thing that I ever did as far as anything hip hop. I didn't like my voice, so I definitely didn't rap. And I started out as a beatboxer, and then eventually moved to rapping, and then moved to production, which is how my dad's records. So vinyl is really what kind of just it took me by storm. My dad's records is how I learned about so much music that I didn't know. So you talk about the Beatles. I mean, he has the Beatles next to Thelonious Monk, next to Otis Redding, next to and you know Gladys Knight, and you're starting to going through and you're listening, and this is the basis of hip hop, right? So when you're talking about all of that, this is how my education on music happened because I wasn't classically trained like all of these people you see on here. They can actually tell you everything about music. I can't. For me, it's how I feel it, and it comes out just based on the feelings that I have. And I want to add just like as I started to go through the industry and meet people, you draw inspiration from others. And I think Andy, I think you said that, but you draw inspiration on the people that you meet and the people that you work with. I work with the Beastie Boys, and those guys give you that. And I don't know if you don't know the Beastie, you may not know. We got some young people on here. They may not know who the Beastie Boys are. So I mean, it's happened to me. So, but like they're like, you like, oh my god, like are you gonna sit down? Are you gonna just sit and chill for a second so we can talk? They're like all over the place, but it gave me that. Oh, okay. So like as Star said earlier, the hustle, like they never stop, and that so that taught me that. And then I worked with Aloe Black, who if you don't know, he's a singer, and his drive and determination because Aloe Black started out as a hip hop rapper. Aloe Black is a rapper. I know that the world knows him as a singer, but Aloe is a rapper at heart and will bust a quick 16 at any moment. And so it's great like to watch how he has transformed himself. So that's another thing. I took that from him like, oh, I got to be able to like be a caterpillar. I got to be able to do this here, and then tomorrow I got to do that, and then tomorrow I got to do so. Drawing that inspiration from others as well. So
We have another question. One of our music majors wants to know, how should I be spending my time when I'm not in class? What can I be doing in my free time to prepare for jobs, gigs when we leave school?
I'd say one of the first things is keep listening to all types of music, and find people that aren't in your normal social circle and find what they're listening to. There's so much music out there that, if you're just hanging out with like-minded people, you're sort of just going to get stuck in only sort of listening to the same thing. And what you put in, you start to put out. So if you're only listening to one type of thing, that's sort of what you're going to put out. The other thing I'd say is get really good at learning music quickly, whether that's sight reading or learning by ear. And I suggest you get really good at both because you never know what kind of gig you're going to land. And the worst thing is if you land a gig and realize, oh my gosh, I need to actually go back to the basics of sight reading and then teach myself how to do this in 2 days. You'll be much less stressed if you walk out of university and into your career being really great at not only learning by ear, but being able to sight read on the spot. It's just literacy, an accountant needs to know how to do certain things with numbers and be able to look at something and read it and understand it. You should be able to look at, a piece of music or a session on a computer and be able to read and understand that.
The first thing that really came to mind was the fact that you have to get really good at creating your own opportunity. So you don't want to be sitting and kind of waiting for somebody to offer you a gig, or, waiting for somebody to ask you to collaborate with them. You need to take that first step and start getting comfortable with feeling uncomfortable in that. So there's no rule that says that you're going to go through music school and then at the end of it, you start working. You can start working now. But that means you have to be willing to share what you're working on, even if you don't feel like, oh, this is 100% there yet. It's all about process. It's all about growth. So if you're thinking about wanting to do a performance, find a space where you can do a performance. Put your music up on Bandcamp, on YouTube, whatever. And if you're thinking about you wanting to collaborate with someone, reach out to them and see if you can make it happen. But just know that you are in the hot seat there and you can make things happen for yourself. You don't have to wait for somebody else to pave those opportunities for you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mel.
Go.
Well,
After you.
I'm going to lead right into you. That what Estar said is actually perfect. At right now, all of you should have a website. You should all have some type of YouTube presence, some type of Bandcamp, you should have a presence. Like, you don't have to wait until you graduate to do this. Don't wait. In fact, if you're waiting, then you're too late. Like, you need to go. Like, there's no stopping. And, I'm looking at Mel's site right now. I just looked at Estar's site. Everybody, you have to sell yourself. You are the one that everybody's going to see. And if you wait, so don't wait. Go right into you, Mel.
Well, yeah. So I was going to say, I think now more than ever, you're seeing people who they're not just a producer. They're a producer, engineer, performer. You're a performer, videographer, this. You have to be, like, now more than ever, we're coming up in the age of hyphenated people. So, learning these skills that you might have never thought you need to do, especially for yourself and your own artistry, like, you can hire teams of people, but to start out, you're going to have to do your own videos, your own production, maybe, or collaborate with somebody else who's up and coming, or a friend or what have you. But, for myself, I'm learning how to do video stuff this year. I've never touched Adobe Premiere Pro until the pandemic started, because I need to learn that stuff now. I need to be a multi-hyphenated person. So I'm a producer, arranger, singer, beatboxer, and now I'm starting to work on that videographer hyphenate thing. And, I'm taking, the other thing is, once you're done with school, take more classes, and maybe not maybe not at another college, but I'm always taking classes from other producers that are, either leagues ahead of me, so I could be fresh on the toes of what is happening now. I just took a class with a producer named Choppa Dunks, and he does like dance hall, reggaeton kind of music. And, like, that's not really my jam, but, like, as an acapella producer, acapella is a style, it's not a genre. And so we cover all kinds of genres within the vocal music spectrum. So I need to know how to produce, even on just like a beatbox, vocal level, like how that sounds. And so I think the important thing is you can never stop learning. So preparing, as far as like preparing to leave for school, I mean, it's a constant journey in my opinion. I don't think it's like, and now I've made it. It's like, it's going to be constantly learning, constantly doing, and trying to collaborate and network.
100%. And the more you learn how to do, the less you have to pay someone else to do it, right? So if you have lots of these skills, there's a reason why Mel is now learning video. There's a reason why lots of us who were performers had to become recording engineers in the pandemic, because no work was coming in and we had to make something of it. And of course, like, if you're an artist, you're not expected to be this, Grammy-winning recording engineer. But if you do have the basic skills to be a recording engineer, you don't have to rely on someone or wait on someone to make a great quality demo. And even that, to do that, like having not to have to pay someone to do a demo and to do the track, you've saved yourself some money, and that's a great thing as a freelance musician.
One thing I could add too about the free time thing that I never really realized is treat your profession like an instrument. You know, we've all gotten into this because we probably all started on some kind of instrument, and the studio is an instrument. I didn't really realize that until I got into it. So there's nothing wrong with, you know, downloading a multi-track from, they're all over the place. Find a song you love, download the multi-track and mess with it for 5 hours. You'll learn so much. So practice your instrument. And I mean that if it's, you know, your production, if it's mixing, if it's mastering, if whatever, editing, there's so, I'm kind of jealous at how much information is out there now. And you know, I'm sitting there back in the day cutting tape with a razor blade, and I'm like, okay, I can do that with a click now. It's like you guys, I'm not gonna say I had it made, but I'm glad I had that process as well, because it made going into the digital thing a lot easier for me. But and one other thing is, you know, stay a fan of music. Always stay a fan, because the business side of it, which I will readily admit I'm not very good at. And I think it's because it can really kick you. It can really knock you down a lot. You got to be able to take no for an answer. You have to learn to accept rejection, because it's going to happen, and it sucks. And I'm just being a realist here, but it can take the love out of it a little bit. So just stay a fan, listen to current music, stay on top of that. I mean, I'm started, my daughter listens to Billie Eilish. I was listening to the record. I'm like, man, the production on this is nuts. And now I'm sitting there like, okay, I got to figure out how they did that. And I'm like throwing it into a rock track, but that's the fun in it. And like everybody said, the education, I think Mel said, it's like the education never stops. It never stops. But honestly, that's the best part about it, for real.
I just want to quickly just go back, because obviously classes are not always free, and we all come from, you know, different backgrounds, different economic backgrounds. There's so, as Andy said, there's so much information. There's so much free information. You can find so many answers on YouTube. So keep exploring, and you know, if you can't afford that class right away, save up, but don't wait. You know, first of all, just ask people. Musicians know what it's like. So don't be afraid to ask, because the worst thing that someone can say is no. You know, otherwise, the best case scenario is you get the answer you're looking for. And I totally forget the other thing that I wanted to say. So,
all right, we're going to go to the chat again. How about how do you guys push through, whether it's writer's block or any part of your job that you struggle with? What are some maybe experiences or advice or something when the going gets tough? How do you respond?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So my form of writer's block is usually I don't really have a hard time writing. Like if I'm writing, I'm just like, this just could sound good. And I'll just like add a bunch of sounds that either won't work, and I'll just be like, this is trash. And then like, we'll never come back to it again. Or I'll come back to it later on and be like, oh, I had an idea with this. So sometimes I just like leave it for like 2 weeks and then come back to it and be like, oh yeah, okay. And like come in with a different headspace. But usually what happens with me is I get stuck on mixing ballads and producing ballads. Like I'm just, as you could tell, I'm a very high energy, like punch, punch, punch person. And so for me, mixing like super calm, like intrinsic, intimate music, I'm just like, yeah, I'll just throw a bunch of reverb on it and it'll call it a day. But then it's like not as interesting. And so then I get frustrated and I have like mixing block or like producer's block in that way. And so usually what I end up doing is saying like, I need to just change up my routine and like change up my mindset, because the reason I have writer's block is because I'm being way too critical of myself, or I just don't know what to do next. And so I'll either try and draw inspiration from like different YouTube tutorials or listen to some ballads that might have something. But then usually that could either go one way or another and get me into a spin of, oh, well, you're so bad at mixing this kind of music. And so then I'll just do something else. Like I just get out of like my studio and get out of my room, and I'm like, I need to go either like play tennis, which I'm not good at, but so it's like really fun to like just like whack a ball around and be physical. Or like go on a hike where there's like nothing around and I'm in trees and I'm away from technology that I feel like is my barrier. And so it's really helpful to just get out, at least for me, it's helpful to get out of your situation and get out of your DAW, or get out of like, even like away from the piano for a little bit. And like come back to it with something fresh, or having some sort of idea so that it'll jumpstart you back into your session. Like for me, sometimes that's like, all right, I'm just going to change my notebook and like start with a new lyric. Like I'll go from, I have like 800 notebooks just lying around. And so I'll go from one notebook and then to a different notebook. And maybe this notebook will like actually help me focus, or I have past ideas I can draw from. But that's me. That's just me. I'm sure everyone has their processes.
Something that Mel just touched on a little bit was the idea of being self-critical, which it's very important to develop, your own critical voice. But I would say that it's also important to start recognizing your own patterns when you are consistently getting stuck. So if you're in that process, something inspired you, whatever, you have a project deadline and you are writing, if you're hearing that critical voice coming in and talking a big game with self-doubt, this isn't good enough. I haven't done this before. This isn't as good as my peers thing that they just showed yesterday. So that type of conversation that can go in your head, one, it's normal. It happens to pretty much everybody. But two, if you can start to recognize that and observe that as like, okay, I know why this voice is here. I know this voice well, but maybe I'll get back to these things later. Maybe I'll revisit this voice after my writing session, And like Mel said, sometimes you just got to get up and move, and you got to do the things that nurture you outside of your work and that feeds you. But I would just really encourage you all to just recognize that critical voice is a real thing and everybody experiences it. The other thing I would say quickly is something that I get stuck on a lot in work is just encountering new situations where maybe you're expected to kind of know the ins and outs of something when it deals with specifically the business side of things. So maybe you have like a contract or something, you're just not quite sure what the next step is or what the standard is. Reach out to your teachers, reach out to people, artists that you know, and don't be afraid to ask questions, because you can build those relationships and those people are there to help you out for those things. You don't have to figure out every single thing on your own.
That's so important, especially when you're working from home as a musician, is that, there's no one else in the office per se. So it's so easy to feel alone. So knowing that there are lots of others out there also on their computers, don't forget that, you're not the only person there, and definitely reach out. The other thing I'll say is that sometimes you don't have time for writer's block. Sometimes you have to meet a deadline. And you can't email a client and say, I'm really sorry, I just have writer's block. The thing I do in terms of, so yeah, ideally you'd be able to walk away from your computer. But if you can't, the best thing I find to do is literally to keep writing. No matter how bad you think it is, keep doing it. Keep throwing notes on the page, keep writing words down, even if it starts to become a stream of consciousness, because at least it's something that might lead you to an inspiration for another idea. The worst thing you can do is let your sort of inner saboteur turn your creativity off. Once it's off, it's so much harder to get out of that. So try, and it's easier said than done, but try not to let that switch go off. Try to just keep writing, keep, stream of consciousness, throw notes on the page. You can always delete it later. But you can't delete something that's not been written. So keep writing, and maybe that'll inspire you down the line.
Yeah, that's huge, because with a lot of us, we're dealing with other people, like John said, deadlines. And in my situation, sometimes it's mixer's block, like Mel was saying. So my advice, kind of when I work through this and I'm like, man, I just can't get this to sound right, I can't get it to sit right, I just simplify things. What's this song about? I'll solo the lead vocal and like the main harmonic instrument and rebuild it from there, and try to get back down to what is this trying to tell me. The mute button is not a bad thing. It can be a mixer's best friend. You can mute things in sections. They don't have to be all guns blazing throughout the whole arrangement. So you can really find space in muting, and that can really help your arrangement. And this is basically from a songwriter or as a mixer. So simplifying things, going back to the basics of what you're really trying to achieve, can be a nice reset button and kind of get you back up to a place where you feel like you're doing good work, and then deliver it to your client or artist.
Yeah. Also move to another part of the song. So many musicians get stuck in starting from start to finish. And if the verse isn't coming out the way you want it, great. Instead of sitting there staring at a blank sheet of paper, move to another part of the song and try it that way, because that might, again, give you inspiration moving backwards.
We had a question about time management and balancing. Do you want to talk a little bit about kind of what your day-to-day looks like? How much time are you spending on the thing you really love about your job? What's all this behind the scenes stuff that you kind of hate about the job but have to do what you love? And how are you balancing in family and mental health and free time?
What's free time? I'm just kidding. Go ahead, somebody.
If you learn the parts of the gig, of the job, that maybe isn't what drew you to it in the first place. So like, for instance, like the financial side of things, the business side of things, for me, right? Like that's not what drew me to music. I love to write songs. However, if you learn a rhythm with that part of your business, you can save a lot of time in the long run. So especially with communication, right? So like, if you learn to like ask questions out front, be very clear about expectations for projects, for deadlines, for whatever you are working on, that can save you a lot of time later on, so that way you can put more time towards this is the actual work. This is the actual work. This is the writing. So I guess I'm trying to kind of figure this out as I go along. I guess my advice would be, don't avoid it. Don't avoid these things, because if it seems intimidating now, that's okay. Take it one step at a time, and you're going to learn how to do this. If you have the drive to do it, you're going to figure it out. I do want to just put out there that this has been a ridiculously challenging year for everybody, and so life is unexpected, and to kind of pretend that, for myself, that I've just been working at the same rate, the same speed that I was working at like before March happened, it just wouldn't be fair. So I do want to put out there that it's also important to take a breath and realize that it's not all about productivity either. And you got to take care of yourself too, especially during this time.
The most helpful thing I learned in time management is eat your frogs. And what that means is on your to-do list, do the biggest and hardest task first. Because if you have a long to-do list, what you will do is called productive procrastination. You will do everything else on your to-do list besides that one big thing. And then at the end of the day, you'll say, oh, well, I was really productive, but I didn't have time to do that really big thing. I'll move it to tomorrow. And then it won't get done tomorrow, and it won't get done the day after that. So eat your frogs. I have a journal that basically I try to plan out my day from the hour I wake up to the hour I go to sleep. And I literally write in time for call my mom or eat lunch. And of course, you have to be flexible. You know, things happen and things change. But if you set aside time for everything, I'm a list writer. I love a list. So if you're able to, I see some nods. If you're able to at least start out with a plan, I know that might seem like it's squashing creativity, but actually most creativity does need some form of organization around it. Otherwise, it's sort of just this free form enigmatic blob. So organize the time, set aside the time for songwriting rather than just waiting for that inspiration that might never come. So plan out your day, give yourself some guidelines.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Literally, I highlight everything that I must do in yellow or else I'll never do it. And this is like my list for the day. And honestly, the setting aside time thing is so important, as well as setting boundaries, because my business is completely virtual. So I could be online and be working whenever, okay, until like 2 a.m. if I want to, which sometimes I do. But the biggest thing is I'm working with contractors. I have my own work that I'm doing. I'm in a band where I produce their stuff, and creating marketing plans and being my own marketing person and wearing all the hats, doing the financial stuff and taking the time to do all of that. It's a lot. And so sometimes, the other thing is, I teach students. Setting boundaries is so important because I could work until 2 a.m. I can. But if I never set aside the time to write my own music, which is already tough for me to set, is to personally go, okay, I'm going to sit with my mini keyboard and we're just going to do write some beats, whether I use them or not. If I never do that, I'm going to feel like, okay, I'll push it back. Well, it's giving me permission to now push that back another day, because instead I'm taking this time to work on a client's, project, which isn't due until next week, but I'm going to start it now to be ahead of the game. But now I'm pushing my own music that gives me some personal freedom and creativity back, for, it gives me permission to keep pushing those things back, and the same goes for the work-life balance. My fiance is a musician. He plays marimba. He teaches, he actually has a marimba that's hooked up to a bunch of pickups. So it's an electronic marimba, which is pretty fun. And so he understands the lifestyle of being on tour for a few weeks or going to gigs or working late hours. But, that's something that I'm thankful for. But, sometimes that you get burnt out if you're working too much. And it's really easy to do as a musician if you aren't setting boundaries. So my thing for me has, since 2021 hit, has been I have a cutoff time every single day. I have a cutoff time, and then I could do whatever I want. And I wake up, I try to wake up and be at work by 8 o'clock the latest. Because if I'm working, if I do end up letting myself work until 2 a.m., it's only 6 hours of sleep. But boundaries, and that's something that I'm so much better at than I used to be. And even saying yes to everything, because you might want to say yes to everything. The second that you get gig, I want to say yes. I can't say no because I can't afford. Sometimes you can't afford to say no. But if it's pushing your mental health to the brink of burnout, then it's not worth it. So that's why I say boundaries, work-life balance. Boundaries when you're working for yourself.
If you say yes to everything, you end up not being able to give the best to all of these other things, and you end up not giving the best quality product, and eventually that might hurt you. Another thing in terms of boundaries, I don't allow anyone to message me about work on social media platforms. If someone reaches out to me with an opportunity, I say, hey, that sounds like an amazing opportunity. Can we move this conversation to email? And I move it immediately. One, because I have all notifications turned off on my social media. Watch The Social Dilemma. But also because you need to be able to separate work and life. The Swingles used to have a WhatsApp group for our work. And so I'd be, out with my friends, like at a bar, and all of a sudden it's 10 p.m. and I see a work message and I can't help it. My personality is like, oh, I'm going to look at it. And then I'm just I'm taken to the stressful place of having to think about work when I'm having social time.
And be on.
Yeah. So I've now made the Swingles move to Slack and be like a normal business the way we should be, and actually have a separate, work-life thing. So yeah, boundaries is a great point there, Mel.
Saying no gets easier over time. It really does. It's super hard to do when you're starting out, because you do want to take those opportunities when you do have the time. I'm gonna share a story. No one's really touched on the family side of things. I'm a dad to a 7-year-old girl, and my day to day is I wake up, I give her breakfast. I'm homeschooling her, which before that used to be my session time. Then when I'm done with school, I work the rest of the day. So right now, time management is everything. I'm not as productive as I can, but I'm doing the best that I can. And you'll find that your priorities shift over time. You'll be able to do a lot more when you're younger and you have less responsibility. But I was in this band, the band I talked about earlier, and we were touring around the world, and it was a really good gig. It wasn't anything that I was financially tied to because the studio was already doing well. We were making a record, and we were kind of all doing our parts individually at our homes. And I got a call, and it was the producer of the record was like, Andy, you got to sing your harmony parts tonight. We got to turn it in for mixing tomorrow. And it was my daughter's first Halloween. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. Well, if you don't do it, we're going to, we'll find someone else to do your parts. I'm like, well, fine. And this band was more of a business at this time. And I said, well, fine, that's fine. If you feel that my personal responsibilities aren't of value to you, then I don't want to be a part of this. And I ended up leaving my favorite band growing up because my family at that point was more important to me. And so as you progress, your priorities are going to shift, and there's always going to be a place for music, and there's always going to be a place for your profession, and your clientele is going to respect your family and your time. If they don't, you don't need them. You know what I mean? You got it. If you make them a priority and cut them slack when they need slack, they will do the same for you. So that's just meeting the right people and working with the right people as well as you develop. But yeah, family's tough, especially this last year. My schedule has just been flipped upside down.
We have a few questions about kind of how you got to where you are. A few specific questions like, John, why are you in London? Did you grow up there? And Estar, how did your family start a venue? But what did you, when you were 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, like our guests are, what did you think you wanted to do in music? What did you expect versus where you are now, what you're doing?
I wanted to be a teacher, and I still want to be a teacher. You never fully grow up and you're never done. Even though I think that I found my dream job, there's still another dream job that I have. I've always wanted to be a college professor of music, and have my own program where it teaches, sort of a holistic approach to singing, not just classical, not just pop, not just jazz, having students that actually understand that it's just using different muscles and it's just a different placement of the larynx to be able to sing those different styles. And you don't have to turn your nose up at different styles because otherwise you'll just make less money in life. I thought I was going to be a teacher, and I then decided not to be a teacher right away. I started working in a cappella production. And actually, this is the year I met Mel. And then a few months later, my friend posted the Swingles job posting on my wall and said, "Hey, look, I found you a job." Obviously just joking. And I was like, "Oh, the Swingles are still around. Yeah, okay, I'll audition for that." And then it was a 10-month audition process. That was great. I developed heart palpitations from all of the stress and having to put my life on hold. And yeah, so I moved to London when I got the Swingles job. But yeah, still want to teach.
I'm quick and easy. When I was in high school, I didn't even know how to play an instrument or anything. I was just listening to Beatles and Beach Boy records. So I wanted to be, I was a golfer. So I wanted to be a golf professional. And I took my last $130 of student loan money my freshman year and bought a guitar. That was it. And I'm in Bay City because I can be in Bay City, Michigan now. With the way technology is, you don't have to be in LA, New York. I mean, it helps to be in places like Nashville and New York and Los Angeles, but it's not a necessity at this point with everything. I mean, we've learned this past year with we can make records this way, so I'm lucky to have a great music community in Michigan and there was actually just a hole where nobody had a place to go to record. So I kind of got lucky in that regard, but yeah, build up your own music community wherever if you're from a small town, reach out, hang out in the bigger towns around your area, and you never know, you can just stay at home and live wherever you want to live.
Yeah. I never thought I'd be living in Texas, and here I am. I was like, I'm gonna live in Brooklyn for the rest of my life because I want to live in New York, and I did for a little bit. It was awesome, and I wanted to be in a music scene, and I'm in the same boat as John. Like I went to school for at first music education, switched my major to music performance literally halfway through, starting my junior year, and then picked up an audio production minor. Yeah, see, it's crazy. We're just like two peas in a pod. It's I think the thing, I had no idea that a cappella was an actual career until my a cappella group started having shows, and then I didn't know how to beatbox. And no one wanted to do it. So I was like, I'll do it. And then it's the same kind of thing with John, where it's like, there was a job posting that this leading female group at the time in the a cappella world was looking for a beatboxer. And that was the year that I was the primary beatboxer in my college a cappella group. And I was like, oh, I'm graduating in 2 months. I have nothing to do. Great, I'll do it. And then they were like, hey, so just want to make sure, like, before, we're going on a tour. Like, would you be available from March to, April? And I was like, I have nothing after school. Yes, I'm available for a tour, my first performance opportunity. And then, I ended up getting the job, which was really cool. And they were like, by the way, it's in Hong Kong. And I was like, this is dope. So I had no idea. And then one thing led to another. I ultimately, the dream is to be a producer and to help other people realize their music and find their sound. That's always been something I've wanted to do, and I'm really thankful that I get to do it, especially in the vocal world, where and it's such a niche market, niche industry. And it's not a lot of people know it. And so it's really fun. But I mean, that's kind of it. I just kept snowballing with a cappella and learning more and more and loving it and loving that world. And it's brought me to a lot of amazing places. And so it's kind of why I ended up staying in it and continue to.
I am thinking about where to start. If the idea is kind of what drew me to music and where I started, the piano drew me to music, songwriting drew me to music, talking about the family connection. I have older siblings that were writing songs and playing out at venues when I was a kid, and my parents were nice enough to drive us around to the local bars and stuff and like listen to our my older brother and my sister playing in their bands. And there was a question about how my family started a music venue. That was kind of why, because they were taking us to these clubs in Toledo that were kind of out there for like, an 8-year-old, 9-year-old kid, or even their high schoolers to be playing at. So, they took it on themselves to create a space for creativity, and especially a space for younger people to come and share their joy in music and art. So I was really lucky to kind of experience that growing up, and have a little a lot of support in that way. I spoke a little bit earlier about being really drawn to jazz and improvisation, and for me it was all about that feeling of being in the moment, truly in the moment with another artist, with another musician, and feeling like anything could happen on stage, and sharing that with an audience, with a listener. So that is what took me to jazz school. Just kind of funny to think about it in that way now. But I was lucky enough to connect with my mentor there at University of Toledo. That's the other thing. When you go to a school, right, it's not all about just, just the program. It's also about hooking up with people that, want to support you and believe in what you're doing. And you feel like, kind of a grander connection there. And I was lucky to meet with my mentor, who really fostered this idea of creating your own path and listening to your own voice, and developing that. So I spent a lot of time leading my band, composing, because to me, I think the thing that keeps me going is this idea of just telling stories and finding different ways to tell stories. So I love composition. My favorite thing is being able to hear an idea come alive with an ensemble, with, I hopefully an orchestra in the future. So right now, where I am with that is, hey, it was March. I was or February. I was getting ready to go on a tour, and the pandemic hit, and life got weird real fast. But it has allowed me for a time to explore some other things that I'm just as equally passionate about, which is filmmaking, creating music to visual, to film, and also production. I love working with other people. So now I have an opportunity to actually learn how to produce music and try to translate what other people are trying to, make with their music. It's a challenge, but it's so fun. So that's kind of where I'm at now, is just following the next spark, and continuing to, make a living, get by, but, do what I love to do. Oh, also I love comedy too. And that has been very important to me as well, which is kind of funny, but I do a lot of comedy stuff, and I've found that comedy, improv, things like that has also kind of fed into my life and what I'm doing. So, yeah.
One
Where
thing
you end
that
up
we
is
have,
never where you start.
yeah. One thing we have, oh, go ahead. I just got a quick thing. One thing we haven't touched upon either is like access to these people. Like Estar said, that mentors. You'd be surprised at how many people are willing to share information if you just email them. So if you're listening to a record and it freaks you out in a good way, see who engineered it, see who did the arrangement, see who check the liner notes, and email these people. You'll be surprised at who you can contact and how much you can learn from them. Sorry, go ahead, Jason.
No, that's good. And that's part of creating your own path that Estar just said. You got to go get it. You asked like 16, 17, 18, 19, 21, like the age of the people listening to this seminar right now. I would say remain creative and go get it. for me, it's very different than everybody else because I didn't go to school for music. I went to school for business. I was a computer programmer. That's what I did. But the creativity, the music part for me was calling me, and I didn't stop. I answered the call and I kept going, and opportunities kind of just started presenting themselves. Like Mel said, the snowball thing. That's so true. Like if you don't stop and if you're always pushing yourself, like I said, and Brad was so nice to put everybody's website up there. You should, number one, you should have your own website. You should have everything up there so that people can see your music. And then, like Andy said, find out who people are. You can look at a liner note, like you said, and then in 5 minutes with a Google search, you can have their email or some way to reach them. Like, so at your age, you should be trying to reach out and get more information and get more knowledge. And as Andy just said again, everybody who's doing this, well, maybe not everybody, but the majority of people are excited to help somebody coming up. That you'd be surprised, but they are like, oh, you're interested? Okay, well, maybe I can introduce you to such and such or do whatever. I know I love that. That's part of the fun for me, and that's why I got into education because it feels good to give back and try to help someone else because even the biggest, I'll say butthole in the industry, even that person remembers what it was like to be in your shoes because everybody started out like that. I don't care if you're talking about John Lennon, I don't care who you're talking about. Everybody started out as like, wow, I wish I could. I wish I had a chance. So everybody started in your shoes. So reach out and always stay creative.
Let me jump in here real fast. I do want to thank everyone for their questions. We're running out of time fairly quick, and I just don't want to make anyone, I want to let everyone know that your questions are important, even if we don't have time for them. So that's why I put the websites up there, because I'll bet you if you have a question about, hey, Estar, what do you think about writing for Broadway? You could go on her website and email her that question, and I'm sure she'd be able to answer you guys there too. When we're out of time here today. So thank you guys. There's a lot of great stuff here. Do we want to go around the horn one last time, one last piece of advice or one last anything, since we probably don't have any time for another round of 5 answers?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks again for having me. Like Brad said, anybody has any questions about anything, go to readrecordingcompany.com. My email address is on there. I've learned a ton from this. Thank you. I mean, it was fun to be a part of it, but it's also like, I think more fulfilling for me to be a listener. So it's a great experience. At 43, I'm still learning every day. I appreciate the opportunity to BS with all of you great people.
Yeah, I want to just also say thank you for having me. It's been great to meet everybody and also have an outlet to talk about this process, which is so important. So if I could leave with one piece of advice, I would say listen to yourself and develop that inner voice. Developing listening overall. As we talked about, it's very important to listen to the feedback of your mentors, of your peers, of your collaborators. But it's also important to listen to yourself. Develop that intuition, and feel out if things are right or not, because you're gonna know better than anybody else what is right for you. And yeah, please feel free to reach out to me. You can reach me at my website. My email address is starcohen.music, and I'd be happy to talk with any of you further.
Yeah. Same sentiment. Thanks for having me, and please do reach out if you have any questions. My website is in the chat. One final piece of advice I'll say is don't put yourself in a box, and don't let other people put you in a box. A lot of people have said, how do I make a cappella a career? How do I make this specific thing a career? Be open to all types of music, because you don't know. If you've not tried it, you don't know what these different opportunities can bring. And the smaller and more specific your box is that you put yourself in, the more opportunities you close yourself off to. And making music is beautiful in so many different ways than just the ways that you know. So allow yourself to be open to all types of things.
Yeah, same, echoed. Thank you for having me. Yeah. Oh, my echo said you're welcome. So anyway, same idea. Just a lot. My sentiment is the same as John's. Is just like, even though music it will and can be your full-time gig, part-time gig, be part of your community. Like I'm in Austin, and I'm in the Austin Samba Brazilian drumming group, and like never in my wildest dreams would I thought like on every Wednesday from 7 to 9, like I'd be, in Brazilian drumming, like right now through Zoom. But like it's super fun, and you can continue to learn. And it makes me feel like I'm part of a community that like, since I moved to Austin in 2017 and like didn't really know anybody, and music in a music culture that I really didn't know anything about and now know so much about, kind of welcomed me with open arms. So it's a really great way to, if you were to move somewhere, to get to know people. So be part of your community with music as well. Yeah.
One quick thing too, a little piece of advice: you're going to have ruts, you're going to have down moments. Put on a set of headphones, throw on your favorite record, and remember why you got into this mess. That's a good way to get yourself back out.
Okay, I guess that kind of leads into my advice very well. First of all, I got a couple things. And I'm a teacher, so I'm always in that mode. But hopefully right now, all of you have already followed, looked up some of these musicians and artists. I'm already following Mel and Jon on Instagram because that's my go-to of choice. These are the type of things like you guys have to really like I said, go get it. Like, don't sit back and say, oh wow, go get it. Be aggressive, and if you really want to make it happen, go get it. But the other thing that I want to leave you with, and the final thing that I want to say is, just enjoy it. Have fun making music, and there will be times when you forget that. But Andy kind of he always like throws out the right thing, doesn't he? But that's it. Like, put on your favorite record, put on your favorite song or whatever that, and take it there. Like, put yourself back to that place. Like, man, I enjoyed. This is what yeah. And then your creative spark will get up. You'll get back into it. Whatever rut you were in will be gone. But final thought for me: enjoy music.
Well, thank you, everybody. I just want to add that whether, it's like Rawls and I are, represent the older generation in the room. But you guys, whether you're a passionate 19-year-old making music or you're an amazing 20-something-year-old professional, you are our heroes too. And like, look up to each other and find those things about each other that you admire. And that's why we wanted to introduce you to a bunch of different folks today, so that we can, develop some more heroes among each other and in our communities. I'm super grateful. BK, thank you for facilitating this and putting together such a great panel. Everybody give it up for BK. And some of us can hang out here a little bit. I know some folks have to run, so we're not going to keep everyone, but if anyone wants to hang out a little bit and chat some more informally, we can do that. I don't know if like breakout rooms are a thing, but we could maybe do that too if there was an interest. But please do stay in contact with our guests through their social medias or through their websites or whatever, and take advantage of these connections that we learn a lot from and benefit from too. So we hope everyone here in the room will as well. All right. Well, thank you, everybody.